I alluded to this a bit earlier. All eyes certainly on the State Capital Commission of Inquiry today when former Free State Human Settlements MEC Mosebenzi Zwane takes the stand. Now, Zwane, who was also Mineral Resources Minister under Jacob Zuma's administration, has been implicated in that 1 billion rand housing scheme where over 600 million rand was actually paid out to contractors without any work being done. Earlier this week, the Commission heard evidence from a Free State HOD for Human Settlements, Newzroom, who said there was nothing to show for those payments. For more on this and to help us understand the significance of today's developments, let's bring in Sbu Ngalwa. He's Newzroom Africa's political editor, who's going to help us understand the different dynamics. Sbu, always great chatting to you. Thanks very much for coming through. So let's start exactly there, right? Let's place the significance of Mosebenzi Zwane's testimony today. His name has come up several times, not only at the Commission, but certainly in other dodgy dealing outside this inquiry.
Exactly, Ayanda. The reality is that Mosebenzi Zwane is a common denominator in most of the evidence that has been led before the Commission that relates to corruption in the Free State. And before we talk about today's testimony, which relates to the billion rand scheme, remember that there's the Frede farm where over 30 or 300 million was spent, or in fact was misappropriated. It was money that was intended for farmers in the Free State, but that never happened. Yeah. Mosebenzi Zwane again features after all that he has done, did in the Free State, he's promoted to a Minister of Mineral Resources under Jacob Zuma, and he features in the strong arming of Glencore to sell their Optimum mine, but to the Guptas. Now, today's evidence relates to that elaborate scheme. So it's a simple thing like this. The national departments allocates conditional grants. Now, this conditional grant is meant for the intended purposes. Build 14,000 RDP houses. But what happens? With few months left before the end of the financial year, they've only spent about 10%. And Mosebenzi Zwane devises this scheme, according to the evidence, where over 600 million is paid in advance to over 100 companies that are said to be handpicked by him. And all of these companies, they're paid even before they've turned a single sword. So that is the evidence that will be before the Commission today, as Mosebenzi Zwane is expected to respond to that case.
Right. And the real impact, of course, Sbu, is that, people who are meant to be beneficiaries of these homes to this day simply don't have anything to show for it, in spite of these millions having been paid out.
It is always the poor that actually bear the brunt of corruption. And I think that point actually came out very strongly in the Commission this week, because remember, there were 14,000 houses that were meant to be built with a budget of 1.4 billion, and only 10% of that had been spent. Now you spend 600 million, and we hear from the evidence that was led earlier in the week that of that 600 million, nothing much was done. In a few cases, there may have been a few foundations that were built, but actually the money vanished just like that, which means that the poor and those who are without housing in the Free State are still without that housing, in the same case as with the Frede farm case.
Absolutely. It's difficult to speak of the likes of Mosebenzi Zwane, former Premier of the Free State, Ace Magashule, and not be drawn into the likely impact this will have on the factionalism within the ANC. No doubt many senior members also will be watching how today plays out.
But even before we get to that, the reality is that there is little accountability or consequence management in the ANC. This is so here's the thing. If you cannot spend your budget within a particular course, a particular time, that means you are not fit for purpose. But this man became a minister in the national government, but now he's not only an MP, he is chairing the Transport Portfolio Committee, which means he is better paid than your ordinary MP. How this links to the current Secretary General of the ANC is the fact that part of the evidence that was led earlier in the week is that he actually, Mosebenzi Zwane had told officials that some of the people that have to be paid, the contractors that have to be paid, it's at the instruction of the Premier. So the Premier's name keeps featuring. And I think what would be interesting is when does he come to the Commission and what evidence he will lead. Because it's clear that there was rampant corruption in the Free State, something that concerns also the judge, because he says we are looking at what is happening in the Free State, but what about the other provinces? We will never know.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to be the big question, especially as anticipation mounts to that hearing. Sbu Ngalwa, let me thank you very much for coming through, helping us contextualize that all-important testimony from former Human Settlements MEC Mosebenzi Zwane. He, of course, at the helm there in the Free State. Watch out for that. Dumane Mahladi is still on that story for us, and without a doubt, Sbu Ngalwa helping us decode what this means for the social-political landscape in a country like South Africa.